We are going to dedicate this video to someone who really needs no introduction. Someone who's not only an embarrassment to women, but an embarrassment to the human race. I'm sure you all know who I'm talking about. Everything this witch touches turns to poison and just ends up failing. The fact that Naughty Dog thought she would have a valuable insight to provide on a subject she knows nothing about, so that makes me have zero sympathy for what happened, especially considering the fact that Anita Sarkeesian has probably been paid more for her, quote, consulting on The Last of Us 2 than many of the actual developers who made the game. 70% of them quit during production, and Anita Sarkeesian somehow convinced the other 30% to practically simp for her. Yeah, that's truly sad. Imagine spending 7 years of your life trying to please someone who's only using you for their own toxic agenda. Maybe this was what Neil Druckmann meant when he was bragging about diversity. I don't know, I guess having a completely new set of employees every couple of months because they can't stand to listen to your delusional preaching garbage is technically a form of diversity. Bravo, Neil, congrats. But part of it has to do with nutjob wackos like Anita Sarkeesian, who's apparently a writer on the game. How she still has a leg to stand on when it comes to credibility is just shocking to me. But I digress. Good old Anita here starts blaming the fans for the outrage. What do you expect from a game that has creative direction from Anita Sarkeesian? And by the way, Druckmann has no room to talk about bigotry because he bullied a female writer out of the company so he could take her place. Isn't it ironic how they call others misogynists? Meanwhile, the Naughty Dog that we actually loved was directed by Amy Hennig, a woman, but the Naughty Dog that we come to hate is directed by a self-hating man. I have never seen Anita Sarkeesian talk about, let me see, good character development, good storytelling, or even just a genuine concern for female representation in gaming. All that matters to her, all she cares about is treating men as if they're second-class citizens. And now she has single-handedly ruined one of the greatest companies for console gaming we've ever had. A few days ago, poor widdly little baby Neil Druckmann announced that The Last of Us 2 has gone gold. More like this game has gone to SJW woke trash. Neil Druckmann, how many times do I have to teach you this lesson, old man? You're not making a very realistic golf game, sir. Anyway, Neil Druckmann made it seem that going gold means that they sold any copies. What he means by going gold is he took a paintbrush and painted a giant swirly turd gold and then called it The Last of Us Part 2. This video he made, by the way, came off as incredibly condescending, low energy, and he sounded so fake. It was a Hail Mary damage control attempt to try and persuade people into buying this trash. But unfortunately, based on the leaks, nobody trusts a single word that comes out of yours or that witch's Anita Sarkeesian's mouth. Neil Druckmann couldn't handle any criticism on his piss-poor writing ability that he started copyright striking anyone who gave an opinion on The Last of Us Part 2, including myself. Those idiots at Naughty Dog think that making fans turn into enemies will end up well for them. Just look at Fallout 76 or look at Battlefield 5. Those games still haven't recovered from that pathetic, epic, unethical business practices they used. And what's even more pathetic is him thinking that he wrote The Last of Us Part 2, thinking it would be liked by the masses. That's even more delusional. Let's actually talk about Naughty Dog here for a second. The so-called masters of storytelling fired Amy Hennig, who was responsible for their success in the first place. She wrote and co-directed Uncharted 1 to 3, and then they fired her. And instead, Neil Druckmann took notes from Anita Sarkeesian, whose involvement included, let me see, in identity politics, flagging channels, and changing female models into manly women. Yeah, we have her to thank for that abomination. In The Last of Us Part 1, Joel killed a nameless NPC who was no more than an obstacle for your character to remove. Then in The Last of Us Part 2, that was completely retconned into a position of importance, which is just cheap writing in my opinion. Then again, what do you expect from Anita Sarkeesian and her dog Neil Druckmann? One thing is for sure, I will never buy a game from a developer that hired Anita Sarkeesian for input. I hope The Last of Us 2 fails and the collapse of Naughty Dog serves as a warning for any developer thinking about shoving their disgusting political agendas into a game. And if there is a silver lining, you can call it a soy lining, I hope it brings to light to the fact that Anita Sarkeesian is the most despised person in gaming, and allowing her near their product is a literal death sentence. How about this, soy boy? I'll treat Naughty Dog with the same level of respect they treated me when they flagged both of my videos for absolutely no reason, so Neil Druckmann can suck on a stray dog's dick for all I care. Back to this pathetic mess of a video. You claimed that you wanted a discussion, but at the same time disabling the likes and dislikes because you're too much of a damn coward to accept the truth. I mean, if you're so proud of your SJW woke opinion, why don't you show us your likes and dislikes? But oh, that's right. Just like Neil Cuckman, you're trying to hide the criticism because you're a pretentious, virtue-signaling beta cuck. And Neil Druckmann and Anita Sarkeesian will have you think that if you aren't responding well to these leaks, then you are automatically either a sexist or a homophobe. But the reality is, we are just allergic to bad writing, and shoehorning a transgender character whose entire identity revolves around his or her gender in a story that has nothing to do with either is the moment when you fail. Now, Manny is a character who closely resembles a narcissistic beta cuck Neil Druckmann, and anybody who looks at him can tell it's very obvious Neil Druckmann was used as a character model. Now, why does he disgust me? Well, he spits on Joel after he's killed. Now, let me back up here for a second. I want you to understand that Druckmann's character spitting on Joel is a very obvious, clever reference to Druckmann spitting on the wants and hopes of the entire fanbase. Spitting on Joel is just a hidden message to the fans and quote, toxic masculinity, that he took a good zombie fiction and turned it into a gratuitous gore porn with a political twist. Now, I want you to imagine Troy Baker on the ground in his motion capture suit, and then in comes Druckmann with his greasy man bun holding a latte in one hand, screaming, "Take that, you white cis scum," and spitting in his face. This might be some kind of personal issue with Troy Baker, who knows, but after Druckmann spits on Joel's corpse, they all then shoot his corpse for good measure. Now, as if all of that wasn't bad enough, there's a video leak where we are forced to watch Druckmann's character have sex with She-Hulk herself, Abby Strong. Not only is that gross, but this entire story feels like a personal soy boy cuck fantasy from Neil Cuckman. For all the Last of Us fanboys, your head is so far up Neil Druckmann's inverted dick hole to see clearly. Neil Cuckman is a pseudo-intellectual that's ruining Naughty Dog's legacy. This Druckmann guy has no room to talk about bigotry and the such when he bullied their lead female writer out of the company so he could take her place. Naughty Dog literally went from crash to trash. Then again, what do you expect when you hire Anita Sarkeesian, who's nothing more than a pretentious, obnoxious leech? This girl is like the opposite of Midas Touch. Instead of making things turn to gold, it turns to shit. Greg Miller has said on his incredibly boring podcast that he doesn't know how any other game can win Game of the Year. He said this after playing 2 hours of The Last of Us 2. Yes, you heard me, 2 hours, and he's already dribbling all over Neil Druckmann's small penis. The lead up to Joel's death in The Last of Us 2 SJW Deluxe Edition honestly solidifies to me that Neil Druckmann is an absolute disgrace who has zero idea what he's doing. You know what? Here's an idea. I'm actually gonna help the dumbass latte sipping queen known as Druckmann and tell him how he should have done it. Why not have Joel risk his life by rescuing Ellie, but ends up trapped in a deceptive ambush by She-Hulk and ends up dying, but that's not until he takes down half of her gang. That would be a much better fitting end to that character. Or you can keep doing whatever the hell you're doing. I mean, I already want to dig my eyes out with a spoon after looking at those leaked. If you watch the IGN review, it's almost as if Naughty Dog wrote a script for that video. Either that or Anita Sarkeesian had a gun to this guy's head, because that review didn't have a single piece of criticism. Whoever wrote this story, Druckmann, has the same total of brain cells as 3 Down syndrome teenagers. What this does tell me though is that Anita Sarkeesian has her hand up Druckmann's loose butter and is working him like a puppet, just blatant, flagrant, bait and switch, openly scamming their already dumb, pussy-whipped, cringy fanboys. Joel is a character that people wanna have in the game and they fucked up by killing him off so quickly, but Druckmann, the effeminate man who likes to sniff his own farts, killed him off in a needless fashion for purely shock value, and even has his own character model spit on his corpse to rub salt to the wound, but still uses him in trailers to make it seem like Joel makes it fine to the game. Even when it comes to manipulating your audience in a trailer. I guess in Cuckman's stupid brain that makes you a better writer, but look, it went from customer is always right to the customer has no rights. This is purely Druckmann's weird sexual fantasy playing out. Two short-haired, wet lesbians wrestling around in water, in tight vests and then mutilating each other. Fuck Naughty Dog, fuck Cuckman. I hope he doesn't get a single whiff of Anita Sarkeesian stanky poontang. His agenda really ruined a great franchise. He has zero idea what he's doing. I pity these losers because they will eat shit directly from Neil Druckmann's arsehole and show a face of enjoyment and pure bliss while rotting inside. What a sad and pathetic life you lead, and it's been a damn pleasure exposing you cucks. What's even more disgusting is that the guy that has sex with Abby is Druckmann's self-insert. The character looks like Druckmann and it's based off Druckmann. This guy wanted to tear down everything people loved about the first game and then shame them for liking it in the second. And if spicy Neil Druckmann had any sense, he'd come up with a new slogan for Naughty Dog. And knowing how lazy and bad he is at everything he touches, I've already thought of one for him. This is the slogan, are you ready? We're all about going naughty in doggy style, that's why we're called Naughty Dog. 3.3 out of 10 user score. I haven't seen a drop like that since yesterday when Abby Zilla took it from behind from Neil Tranny Fuckman Cuckman himself. Oh, and Neil Cuckman, the self-obsessed soy boy who's probably masturbating to an image of himself while his hairline is retracting more than The Last of Us 2 pre-orders. This Dingleberg hate-mongering elitist should not be a director of any game, any movie, anywhere. This is not a sequel to The Last of Us 1. This is just a showcase of Druckmann's psychosexual fantasies. IGN can take it up the arse, Abby style. No lube, man-on-man thrusting, just like how Neil I sit when I pee Druckmann likes it. And not only does Druckmann sit when he pees, he faces the wrong way when he does it. Lucy O'Brien and Neil a hole is a hole Druckmann and all the other woke SJW crowd who reject fair criticism from people like me are weak-spirited, narcissistic, self-satisfied children who believe they don't need to improve on anything because they are already flawless, almighty, the all-knowing gods among men. Neil a hole is a hole Tuckman. I call him that because his manhood is tucked between his legs, just like the female Geodude Abby Zilla. And you know there's a problem when a writer self-inserts him in a game to have sex with the protagonist. And let's not forget, he put himself in the game so he can spit on Joel's dead body. I want all of my fans to understand that when Cuckman spits on Joel, he's spitting on the original game and all of its fans. Joel's corpse is like a metaphor for Naughty Dog's toxic attitude towards their own fans. I don't know, maybe Joel wanted to die because he knew how bad the game was. So he yeeted himself away from that dog shit as soon as he could. You know what, I'm not gonna stop giving Druckmann nicknames. Another nickname I'm gonna give him is Joker Cuckman. And his catchphrase is, I'm gonna make this franchise disappear. Ta-da! Cuckman ruined this game on purpose out of spite. He's just that kind of prick. I mean, it takes a special kind of incompetence to take the reputation of Naughty Dog right over the cliff in one game. He spent years chasing out the original team just so he can make a game that nobody likes. I bet that Anita Sarkeesian was using a BBC vibrator while directing Neil Cuckman's motion capture man fantasy The Last of Grindr 2. And the most insulting part was Neil Skunkman didn't even have the decency to give good old Abby Zilla the reach around in that spicy scene. The Last of Us 2 is a cautionary tale about the dangers of revealing your identity to trans people. Just ask Joel. Oh wait, you can't. He's too busy being a spit bucket for Neil Cuckman. Look, hold on for a second, let's be serious. If Cuckman genuinely thought people would like his attempt at fetishizing lesbian and trans characters, or spitting on Joel's corpse, or sodomizing another man, then he needs to be institutionalized. The fact that this developer is so disrespectful towards his own fans, his own characters, just shows where his priorities are. Now, this is what happens when a person gets lodged so far up their own arse that they start choking on their own head. However, now he is facing the harsh reality that his prized magnum opus is hated. Not because of his bold choices like he hoped, but because us peasants are having the audacity to question his absolutely horrendous, appalling writing. Look, I already knew that Cuck Mam was a petty man-child, especially when he did the typical SJW tactic of, if you don't like it, you're a bigot to deflect all criticism. I don't know, maybe he's butthurt that people didn't like the scene of him getting pegged, but hopefully Druckmann's next project will be his resignation. Somebody should tell him to check his white male privilege at the door and give his job to a disabled, transsexual person of color. And speaking of the LGBT, even they hate The Last of Us 2 more than anyone I've seen. It's funny how Cuckman paraded talking about inclusivity while also lynching the only trans character. Way to go, you latte-sipping soy bitch. Neil Cuckman mocapped as both the characters in that weird scene with two dudes boning. Oh looky, what do we have here? Druckmann indulging in way too many sex scenes. Oh, this is why he went to Sony's HR department and said, quote, I did not have mocap sexual relations with that voice actor. It all makes sense now. Mr. Neil Cuckman, the man who clapped Triple H's cheeks in The Last of Us 2 No Lube Edition, the fastest selling, lowest rated game ever made. Cuckman's reasoning for Joel's death can be summed up like this. Joel man retard, Joel man bad, Abby Zilla good. He even had the audacity to claim, quote, we love the characters more than anyone. I think Neil is pretending that he didn't literally spit on the fans' favourite character with a self-insert of himself after he killed him off like a dog. Oh, and how can I forget? He gave Ellie no other choice than to kill herself at the end of the game because she's alone. But yeah, he loves the characters more than anyone. What an inexperienced, oblivious, naive, moronic dingleberry. He really is like the Ryan Johnson of gaming, not because they both have punchable faces, but because they're both pretentious, clueless idiots who don't understand what the fans want from their product. Instead, they force feed them agendas. This is further proof that Druckmann needs to be kicked out of Naughty Dog immediately. The Last of Us 2 is a disaster that demonstrates that he isn't a good director or a writer that everyone thought he should be, and I want people to stop calling him a feminist because Neil's message throughout the game is that women can't get the job done when it comes to revenge. How incredibly sexist. All it takes is Neil Cuckman to follow this clown on Twitter, retweet his boring trash stream, and he's ready to swallow Naughty Dog's rope while simultaneously massaging Druckmann's taint at the same time. I'm almost certain that this fucking donkey has the words, "Penetrate me, Neil," tattooed across his lower back. So how does a character that influences so much emotion to the point where you start whimpering like a caged rat, having a mental breakdown just from seeing a few seconds of Joel in the trailer, to laughing and behaving like a circus clown when he dies in the full game? I think most of you already know the answer, but it's because Neil Druckmann retweeted and joined his stream. That's literally all it takes for him to turn into a cheap-ass prostitute. And instead of actually reacting in a genuine fashion, he instead tries to go against the grain by making sure Druckmann notices his pathetic shill attempt. Also, quick side note, I wonder if Druckmann thinks that smiling like a moron at Joel dying was the intended reaction of that scene. Oh wait, it isn't. Because in a recent podcast with another industry dick puller, Greg Schiller, a few days ago, he wanted people to be disgusted watching Joel die. So when it comes to shilling, this mongoloid can't even do that right. I don't give a fuck if Druckmann likes me. I don't give a fuck if I get a PS4 limited edition. As far as I'm concerned, Cuckman can take that PS4, put as much Vaseline on it, turn it sideways, and stick it up his already loose arsehole when Anita Sarkeesian is already done pegging him. Zachary Ryan Johnson, who works for IGN, fuck knows how there are millions of people unemployed right now, and this incompetent, moronic, lazy ditz somehow has a job. Maybe his job interview required him to wear knee pads. It's pretty clear that Neil Druckmann used him for his services. And then once Neil was done, he passed them over to the fellas at IGN. If you are one of those people, the only thing left for you is to buy some knee pads and floss your teeth in preparation for a mayonnaise mouthwash from Neil Cuckman himself. So, After all that political pandering towards the deranged alphabet community, how did that work out for that Mickey Mouse wanker Neil Druckmann? I know he has some daddy issues and Joe got in the way of that, but you've been telling porcupines for a few months now, before the game even came out, and now the dumpster fire keeps raging on. If General Grievous collected bad games instead of lightsabers, he would have The Last of Us Part 2, The Last of Us Part 2 Collector's Edition, and Neil Druckmann's butt plug. Oh wait, that's a different collection. I meant PS4 The Last of Us 2 Limited Edition. Just when I thought I drank every last drop of soy milk from Druckmann's saggy tit, I was given the great news that we will be adding whitewashing to The Last of Us 2 Dumpster Fire bingo card. A truly subversive accomplishment from Neil Druckmann, bravo! The self-proclaimed champion of diversity is now devaluing a black character by stripping him of his racial and ancestral pride. Neil Druckmann wanted the new Doctor to be noble and likable as much as possible. So in his racist mind, he decided to make him white, even though in the first game he's very clearly black. So let me get this straight. Neil, I tuck my manhood between my legs, Druckmann retconned his race from black to white because he thought a white man would be easier to sympathize with instead of a black man. How incredibly racist. You could almost picture Neil Druckmann in his boardroom meeting saying, "You can tell he's a good guy now because we made him white." Hold on a minute, wait a second, I just thought of something. Maybe Abby's dad did blackface. Hold on fellas, I'm in the bathroom right now, taking a Neil and wiping my Druckmann. Give me a second here. Okay, I'm done. Let me just flush the toilet. Wow, that was one steamy pile of subhuman, latte sipping, ponytail wearing cuck shit. Neil, if you don't like my game, something is wrong with you, Druckmann, made another moronic tweet, which is just another Tuesday for him, saying, quote, "I can't understand how people get worked up over fictional characters. Does somebody want to tell this absolute novice that becoming emotionally invested in a character is the very essence of powerful storytelling? When you come to the conclusion that it's only a fictional character, then you don't have any passion or respect for your own work. But we already knew that. Just look at The Last of Us Part 2. It's pretty obvious that this mongoloid is unbelievably thoughtless and close-minded. But let's just take Neil Druckmann's words as fact. Then why read books then? Why watch any movies or TV shows? Why play any games? I guess people read books only for their linguistic prowess. I mean, what a stupid deflection of legitimate criticism. If you don't understand why people get invested in characters, then you are a trash tier writer that needs to pack it up and go home. This moron is literally devaluing his own industry as a place for creativity and art. I would love to hear what an artist thinks of his comments. I mean, what a complete insult from this politically correct coward. It's almost as if he made the game for himself. Oh wait, he did, and that's why it's failing. Also, I want everybody to remember his quote when the leftist mob cries about representation or about fictional characters being problematic, because at the end of the day, they're just fictional characters, right? And all I want to say is, weep for me, Neil Druckmann. Weep the tears of failure. It is oh so delicious. We witnessed the rise and the fall of the Smeglord. A disappointing life indeed, cut far too short. May he rest in Anita Sarkeesian smeg. Now I feel absolutely nothing for Neil Druckmann because he did all of this to himself and now he has to deal with it, or he can keep reeing over it like he's doing right now on Twitter. This bitch is so thin-skinned that he had a severe meltdown over a parody on Reddit. If this pendejo spent as much time as he does on social media and instead used that time to make good video games, his games would still suck because he's Neil Druckmann. I mean, the guy has a man bun. I think he came out of his mother's arsehole with a man bun. That should tell you the kind of person we're dealing with. And that's why you should never, ever trust a male feminist, especially Neil Druckmann, who claims to be all about the advancement of women, but purposely sabotaged and drove away one of Naughty Dog's leading women and put himself in power.
To all our critics, we listen to that stuff and we digest a lot of it, but you're way less important. And some of you are not important at all.
Jesus H. Christ. Neil Druckmann, you lispy bitch. How dare you? My feelings are hurt. It's not my fault that I'm allergic to weak-minded, soy-infected pussies who look like baristas that spit in your coffee for the mildest reason. What you just heard are the cries of a man who's angry that his weird sexual fetishes are being publicly insulted instead of being praised. He's either lying or incredibly deluded, and I'll be honest, both are perfectly plausible. Regardless, he needs to be institutionalized with that dirty hairy minge Anita Sarkeesian, because he is one petty man-child. Just because none of us liked his fanfiction and his pandering masterpiece, all of a sudden we don't matter. Neil Druckmann, you're just gonna lay your stupidity all out there for people to see. Okay, you know what? We need to find Druckmann a woman that will treat him the same way Joe was treated. Then maybe I could give him some respect. But the way he's going, he should work for Lucasfilm or Disney. Rian Johnson with his round head is sitting there saying, "You're never gonna beat me at destroying beloved franchises." And Neil Druckmann is just standing there and is like, "Hold my soy latte." I mean, who the fuck has the nerve to say my critics or fans aren't important? I'll tell you who. A certain egotistical bitch who self-inserts himself into The Last of Us Part 2 just to spit on a beloved character's lifeless corpse. I remember when he said, "I'd rather have people passionately hate The Last of Us Part 2. Well, you got your wish, dickhead, aren't you proud? The thing you have to remember though is, when it comes to Neil Druckmann, you have to keep an eye on any man who unironically wears their hair in a bun. We should have seen this one coming years ago. Especially when he stole the franchise from a woman just to virtue signal that he's an ally of Whaman. I will never ever negotiate with SJWs because their demands get crazier and crazier by the day. They don't want us to play Far Cry. They want us to play The Last of Us Part 2. Now that's a game that panders to the weird obsessions of a weirdo SJW simp cuck. And for that, they can suck on a hobo's dick cheese. While Neil Druckmann is living in his soy-soaked universe screaming girl empowerment, girl muscles, girl revenge, girl smash, there's a game called Ghost of Tsushima coming out. Neil Sissy Boy Druckmann must be thinking, how is this weeb game more successful than my SJW identity politics dumpster fire piece of diabolical shite? Do not worry, I'll tell you why, you soy latte sipping, man bun wearing, barista looking, narcissistic cuck. Oh, and Druckmann's wife's boyfriend is actually Jin from Ghost of Tsushima. I just wanted to put that out there. Neil Druckmann is sleeping with all the fruity fairies like that rat who reviewed The Last of Us 2 on IGN. I mean, Neil Druckmann must be getting really tired, making all of those Metacritic accounts to try and tank the Ghost of Tsushima. Throughout this video, if you listen very closely, you can hear Neil Druckmann crying. Neil Soymam's wife's boyfriend is gonna be so mad at him when he finds out. And as Eric Cartman once said to Scott Tenorman, the saying goes to all the SJWs and Neil Druckmann, who's flailing around like the fruit fly that he is, "Let me taste your tears are oh so yummy." Somebody should send a copy of Ghost of Tsushima to Neil Druckmann with a note that says, "This is how you make a good game," and say it with me folks, "Get woke or go broke. Play as a Viking. earn your place in the arse guard in our new LGBTQ friendly game, Brokeback Creed, directed by Neil Druckmann. The Last of Us 2, directed by Neil Sucks Men, reminds me of a certain celebrity called Amber Heard. Okay, sure, she does look pretty, but has a grotesque, ugly personality. And least of all, has the tendency to shit in your bed when you least expect it, and then have the nerve to blame you for it. Most animals have an instinct to never defecate close to the place where they sleep. However, Amber Heard and Neil Druckmann clearly are an exception to that rule. PewDiePie is the one true king of YouTube. He has now publicly stated that Ghost of Tsushima is better than The Last of Us 2. And Neil Druckmann unfortunately heard the news on the radio while driving his wife and her boyfriend to the hotel. Mamma mia, that idiot Neil Druckmann keeps getting his arse kicked, beaten by a 6-year-old Wii U port, while Neil Simon is saying, "We don't use the word fun." Mario is like, "Make way, it's me, Mario." Imagine playing Luigi's Mansion and then being forced to play as the Toad for 90% of the game. That is what the soy latte sipping bitch known as Neil Sucks Men decided to do with The Last of Us 2 Transgender PGA Golf Edition. Steve O has been through more crazy shite and yet still has more brain cells than the Twitter simping valley girl Neil Sucks Men, who unpacks his colon every time he wakes up. Hi guys, my name is Neil Druckmann. Welcome to Dumbass. There you go. That's your next career path, Cuckman. You jumping off a cliff with nothing to save you while eating a bigot sandwich. Yeah, I'd pay to see that. Guys like Neil Cuckman shoot themselves in the foot and then get surprised that it hurts. You have nobody to blame but your soy latte sipping self. There is no point in groveling and begging people to come back because your career is destroyed. Done, clapped, bulldozed, finito. How did that work out for you, Neil? Never trust a man who unironically wears a man bun. I find it hilarious that Neil is pretending that he didn't literally spit on the fans' favorite character after he killed him off like a dog. He reminds me of that meme of that dog where there's a fire and the caption says, "This is fine." The only difference is that Naughty Dog dies a horrible death. Neil Druckmann is the kind of guy whose intelligence doesn't improve no matter how much he levels it up. Neil Druckmann had the unmitigated gall to say, "We should not sexualize women," while also self-inserting himself in a scene where his character does it doggy style with Brock Lesnar. Druckmann is just a bad writer. He can't handle any criticism, even when he knew he was wrong. To quote the famous words of Mr. Miyagi, "Oh ho ho ha ha, most dishonorable Neil-san." This does put a smile on my face, but what doesn't put a smile on my face though, is my PTSD from watching Brock Lesnar, the man lady, getting slammed from behind by Bravo 6 going in dry Neil Sucks Men. I can picture him directing it and saying, 1 thrust, 2 thrust, 3 thrust, 4, cut to black. Ghost of Tsushima just walked over to Neil Druckmann's agonizing, reeing body and promptly pressed X to end his suffering. A katana right between his lactating soy-filled titties. Anyway, Amy Hennig, who got replaced by Neil Druckmann, must be sitting down somewhere eating popcorn right now watching Naughty Dog burn. But unfortunately, I guarantee you that the game journalists, and I use the word journalist as loosely as Neil Druckmann's colon, the inevitable article coming out is going to be 5 reasons why giving out free content to gamers promotes toxic masculinity, gatekeeping, and homophobia. Now, in a move that reeks of desperation and jealousy from Neil Druckmann over the success of Ghost of Tsushima, psst, Bitch boy, we still prefer the katana over the golf club. You soy latte sipping beta male. They've decided to bring Joel back to save The Last of Us 2 in the form of a song. What you should have done is add a scene of Neil Druckmann signing up to a lifetime membership for Anita Sarkeesian's OnlyFans page. A simp giving money to a thief. I will never stop laughing at Neil Druckmann until he cries and then laugh about him crying. That is what happens when you flag my channel, you greasy-haired, unshaven nincompoop. Neil Druckmann is currently wailing hysterically, shakier than a leaf, hugging his Abbyzilla pillow oh so tightly. The police officers in the United States do not need to use tear gas on protesters. All they need is a 4K image of Druckmann, Bravo 6 going in dry, raw dogging Abbyzilla, plastered on their riot shields. That would do the trick. Sucker Punch really hit the jackpot releasing their game before The Last of Us 2, because Neil Sucks Men, who will never make another good game again, literally did all the marketing for them. When you're as greedy as EA, making billions of dollars a year, who cares if they ruin every sport they touch, because the rules don't apply to them. A game so bad that IGN couldn't even be bought out to make a good review. The most hated company in the world with the lowest score in the world. That is poetic. I know that beta male Neil Druckmann must be smiling while sipping his soy latte, but not so fast, Neil Druckmann. You had 7 years to tell a good story and you ruined it, so nothing comes close to your dumpster fire. I was sent a tweet by Nev G and Warrior by Sand. I appreciate you tagging me and Ryan Kinnell, who's another legendary YouTuber who's been giving The Last of Us 2 the business. He's been keeping his boot firmly planted on Neil Druckmann's neck, so he has my respect. Now, Neil Druckmann, my only message to you is pull down your pants, because Anita Sarkeesian is coming through with no lube. Actually, scratch that. You'd probably like that, considering you inserted yourself into a full frontal gay scene in The Last of Us 2. This dude literally thinks he's Quentin Tarantino with all these cameos. Neil Druckmann is the kind of guy to kill Joel only to get left unread by Anita Sarkeesian. And on that bombshell, thank you for watching. Mannix out.